Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Soul Seekers podcast, where we believe that hunting has the power to transform lives through primal adventure, as we share our mission of mentorship is conservation. To learn more about everything we do, check out our show on Carbontv or go to soulseekersnation.com. Freedom on, everybody, and stay soulful. This podcast is proud to be brought to you by the Crazy Elk Company. Go to crazyoutcompany.com to pick up yourself a tag wallet, custom kill kit, or one of their e-tag systems to throw in your pack this coming hunting season. Use the code SOULFUL with a capital S to save 20% at checkout. This podcast is also proudly brought to you by OnX Hunt. When I first got into hunting, I kept hearing all about public land and different access and how to find different locations to hunt. I was like, well, how are people even identifying all this stuff? Well, sure enough, I came across the #1 hunting GPS app, and that is OnX Hunt. If you guys want to get better at hunting and go deeper into your scouting, OnX Hunt is the #1 GPS app for that. Join the millions of hunters who trust OnX Hunt to find more game, discover new access, and hunt smarter. It was a game changer for me, and I know it's going to be a game changer for you if you've never used it. If you have used it, you know the power that it holds. Guys, I really hope you enjoy this episode. If you want to know more about OnX, go to onxmaps.com/hunt and check out their app. Be blessed, freedom on, and stay soulful.
Yeah.
Cheers. Cheers, everybody. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the, actually, I'm going to shift gears. I was going to say the Soulful Hunter podcast, but if those of you who have been listening and caught the episodes previous to this, it's going to be Soul Seekers podcast. Soul Seekers, y'all are Soul Seekers Nation tuning into this episode, and I'm Johnny Mack, your host, and I'm joined by a savage warrior of a dude that I've been trying to line up, and I do say try. Maybe I need to. No, we do not try. We only do or do not. I have been meaning to line up on this podcast for some time, and we just haven't connected. And life happens for us, not to us. And there's a reason why we're recording tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Without further ado, I bring to you Mike Salemi, performance specialist and all-around savage, wonderful human being. Mike, what's happening, brother?
Dude, thanks for having me on, man. I am also stoked that we made this happen, and I appreciate the reframes and the words, bro. Yeah, lot more accurate, more powerful. So I'm stoked to be here, man, and jam out with you.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. So listeners, if you've been following along with this podcast for quite some time, you know that it's hunting, but it's also diving into self-improvement. Where, the core values of this podcast and everything that we do is mentorship, it's community, self-discovery, natural connections, conservation, legacy, and inspiration. And so today, we're going to be diving into that self-discovery topic. We're going to dive into that inspiration, the natural connections, and I'm so excited. It starts with making sure you use the correct wordage, the verbiage that we use. Words hold power. Ain't that right, Mike?
Absolutely.
Mike, the listeners need to know who you are, where you're from. Obviously, I gave you, I would say, a stellar introduction, but so here you are. You call yourself a performance specialist. What does that mean? Because that covers a lot of. It's an umbrella term for a lot of different avenues in life.
I think that's honestly the reason why I chose it, because it's like a lot of times, whether it's, on a podcast or whether it's in, networking meeting or whatever it is, you got to have some type of title that people can at least orientate themselves around and imagine what it is that you do. And for me, performance is the best all-encompassing word, because I was an elite athlete growing up. I competed heavily in powerlifting at an elite level. I also was an elite Kettle Bell sport competitor, won the world championships in that. And so a lot of my background stems as both an athlete, a coach. However, that was also the window into a lot of the deeper stuff. So a lot of the more spiritual connection to food and to our environment and to ourselves and people. And so I love the word performance because it can be taken both in and out of the gym, and it encompasses every single part of life, which for me the way I view performance is as holistic as possible. So it includes the mental component, the emotional component, the spiritual component, and the physical, as opposed to how most people look at it, maybe just as physical training or physical prowess, let's say, whatever they want to say.
And tying it into like the hunting, which we are going to actually get into that here pretty soon, but today's world of hunting, everyone, I speak so general and I need to refrain. I need to like dial this in, and I'm going to right here,
You're
right now.
doing great, man. You're doing great.
There's a majority of hunters that are all about making sure they perform the best on the mountain. They perform the best to do their due diligence and hone their craft, master their craft so that they can be the most lethal, the most deadly, and the most ethical hunter that they can be.
Mm.
And all that dials down to performance and ethics, being ethical, being lethal, being a killer, however you want to describe it. It starts with training. It starts with performance and how you perform. And performance, being a school teacher. You're getting me going, Mike. I know we're only 4 minutes into this podcast. One of the things that I really learned early on, because I played college football. I was a college quarterback, also played college lacrosse, and I was a high-performing athlete as well.
Mm.
My wife, she says I'm a high-performing individual. I'm just kidding. But the whole point of this was that I learned right away, like looking at a protractor, and you see those 180-degree marks all over a protractor, and it's like, well, that 179 to 180 doesn't look that far off. But when you start with just that smallest degree off your mark, that by the time you go downrange to your target goal, your destination, whether it's you shooting an animal or you have some goal that you're working to achieve, you're going to be missing the mark. And it starts with identifying it and then going through your performance. So without further ado, Mike, and I'm sorry I just monologued that right there, but like I love a good spiritual episode, a good like self-improvement, motivational episode, and you're hitting it for me already. Talk to me about why performance is so important and why you are a performance specialist.
I mean, it's for me, it was just so tied to how I grew up. Like a lot of my mentors and coaches, for me, like I'm thinking back to when I was a gymnast, even at like 7 years old. I was fortunate enough to have what was he? This guy was named Krasimir Dunev, and he was the two-time Olympian. He was the first gymnast ever in the world at the time to do 7 release moves on the high bar. So basically, swing around the bar, do some type of acrobatic movement, release, and catch. And so from a young age, that was who I envisioned that I wanted to be. And so for me, like performance has, in some way, shape, or form, it has been a part since my childhood. My brother was a gymnast even earlier than me. And so I've always been attracted to being the best performer possible. And I even loved when I was training in powerlifting. For me, the gym was really how I learned to see objective performance, because when you're in the gym, it's so easy to measure progress because you can, you put 1 pound on the bar, 5 pounds on the bar, 20 pounds on the bar. So for me, performance was also where I built a lot of my own self esteem. And because it was so tied to my journey, I really wanted to share that with others. And so that's why I absolutely loved becoming a coach, from
Mm.
youth to adults, you name it.
Man, I love that. So here you are being a world champion in the kettlebells. Like, I don't care if it's world champion in darts, world champion in origami, world champion in whatever. To be at that high of a level
Mm,
speaks extremely, extremely paramount about your character and about your
mm,
dedication. Because, like I talked about that protractor, you couldn't have gotten to where you were unless you started with that foundation. So not only you doing the physical performance, but you're also talking about the mental performance. And so we're going to tie all this into hunting here pretty soon, because Mike, you got some cool stories about what you do when it comes to hunting and being a
mm.
field, but tie it into like the head game, because one of my favorite books I've ever read is The Untethered Soul. Have you ever heard of it?
I've definitely heard of it, have not read it though.
it's all about the inner voice in your head.
Mm,
It's humanity struggles with the inner voice in their head, and the biggest battle to get you up and going in the day is not like your alarm clock. It's the voice in your head saying, "Oh, I need some sleep. Oh, this bed feels really good. Oh,
mm.
So it's that inner voice that is constantly, we have to conquer that, and then when we conquer that inner voice, the world becomes your whiteboard, like whatever you want to do with it.
Yeah, man. For me, especially when training or competitions would get hard, and for those that may not be familiar with kettlebell sport, they're just to give a little visual so you can kind of really feel into it a little bit or really see it in your head. So kettlebell sport, the event that I would compete in is called long cycle, and so basically what that is you take two kettlebells. Typically, the professional division is two 32 kilo bells in each hand, or no, one in each hand, so two total, but it's 70-ish pounds each. And you basically clean the kettlebell. So you swing them through the legs, clean them to the chest, and then lift them into the overhead position with a jerk. And you repeat that nonstop for 10 minutes. You can't set the bells down. So basically, it was me lifting almost my body weight without stopping for 10 minutes. And I remember there was a point in every set, typically at minute 3 and minute 7. At minute 3, it's like stuff is getting real. Like that's when you start really grinding. At minute 7, it's like I knew that if I could get to minute 7, I could finish the set. And the only difference between finishing and not finishing was my head game. And one of the things that I always return back to, because I've been injured many times in my life as well and had to rehab, and those were all very down moments for me, was the fact that I knew in my heart and in my soul that I was going to have so much more respect for myself if I just fucking kept going. Literally one foot, just think about one rep. Breathe and move, breathe and move. That was the only cue. And even when I coach, all the skill development for the most part should be taken care of. Maybe you give your athlete, one or two tips if they're making a mistake during a set, but the idea is to keep them focused and present with the activity at hand, and just breathing and focusing on the very next rep, I knew was my key to performance. And I also knew that if I did it, I was going to be able to walk out and be like, damn, like I'm proud of myself, and honestly say that.
Yeah.
And so that's really for me, like the head game, especially at that high level. And I know you can relate to that. At that high level, everyone's a badass athlete. Like
Yes.
literally, and you hear this all the time in MMA. I was just watching UFC Embedded, and they're like, dude, it depends who shows up on that day, because everyone at that level is a killer. It just depends who's more dialed in mentally.
Yeah. Yeah. So I ran ultra marathon, right?
No way. I didn't know that.
Well, let me.
Dude.
Yes.
Dude, you gotta come on.
I got
Dude,
I got some some
you
secrets.
good. You
Hey.
got some good stay.
Okay, so how it actually happened, I'm really really irritated by this. I'm going to share this because 2020, the year COVID kicked off, I was 3 weeks away from running my first ever 100-mile ultra marathon,
Wow.
and it got canceled because of COVID. So, when I say I've ran an ultra marathon, anything over 30 miles is considered an ultra.
Okay.
And my longest training run, just going out on a Saturday, going for a training run was 40 miles.
Easy stroll.
Yeah, just, hey, I'll be gone. I'll be back in 7 hours. I'm going to go do 40 miles. And so a lot of people are like, well, dude, how do you run for that long? It's like one step at a time. Like and as cliche as that sounds, it literally is. I'm just focusing on that next step. By mile 30, my quads are tightening up, and my gluteus maximus hurts, and my hips hurt, and all this. And it's like you just keep going. And in the hunting realm, I was like, well, how do you eat a whole elephant? Right? People shoot elephants. They that don't go to waste over in Africa. How do you eat a whole elephant? One bite at a time.
Mm.
And it just like my mother, God bless her soul, she said, inch by inch is a cinch. Mile by mile may take a while, but inch by inch is a cinch.
I love that, dude.
And that's always like resonated in my mind.
Yeah, I'm so curious if you could share a little bit why ultra marathons? What was it about that? Was it that you saw or felt and experienced a connection to hunting because of that, or like what was it about that? Because yeah, that's insane, dude. That's and so a lot of respect.
Oh, thank you. I think, well, I know a couple things. I've always had self-esteem issues,
Mm,
courage issues, ego issues, and feeling the need to prove myself, like I'm man enough, I'm good enough, you know. And so, um, there was a point in my life that shifted about 2 years ago that I chose. I'm not a second place finisher. For the longest time, I was like, oh, I'm good, but I'm not the best. I'm really good, but I'm never going to take first place. And so personally, in this, it hits two different avenues on this, but one side of it was I wanted to actually see what my body could do. I wanted
mm,
to know how hard is hard,
mm,
because so many people in this life are like, oh, dude, work was so hard today. Oh, it's like, was it? Was it really that hard? What is hardest part about it? Is it just your head game? Or is it actually physically hard? Because those are two different things, and people confuse them. The other aspect, when I said the ego driven and wanted to, be good enough, is I wanted to selfishly be like, look what I did.
mhm,
And I believe I've gotten over that, because once I ran my 40 miles and I was like, okay, I proved to myself that I can go 7 hours. And at that point, it's just continuing to go until you reach 100. Um, some people might challenge me otherwise that run ultras, but that was kind of the thing, is like, okay, I can do it. It wasn't that bad. Let's move on. Now I can say I've ran an ultra. So that's kind of how I went about it. But tying it back into what you were saying is like this performance of just small bites, focus, intention. Don't worry about that end goal. And going into the hunting field, everyone's like, oh, I want to kill. I want to get that
mm,
animal, that maybe it's that trophy or that first notching that first tag. Well, you can't put the cart before the horse. You really have to make sure you go through your protocol in everything to even have that opportunity to seal the deal. And it's a metaphor for life, which is why I wanted to have you on this podcast, because I know you can speak so much to it.
mm. I love that, man. Yeah, I felt the same thing when, I actually didn't know. I didn't even know of the word process goal until I was working with the coach who was coaching me up in kettlebell sport the last 2 years there, a guy named Paul Check, he's a holistic health practitioner, incredible. If anyone's interested in looking at some of his stuff online, he's an OG, been around for 30 plus years at a high level. And he was telling me, he's like, dude, we need some process goals. We need to teach you, and we need, I don't know if teach is the right word, but we need to have you start celebrating yourself and celebrating the process along the way. And one thing that I remember was I was coaching one of my athletes, and she was also my training partner as well. So we would train in the garage, and she's an incredible baker, like insane. And so what we would do is she'd come over, I don't know, like 6 a.m. We would train, and while we're training, she would have in the oven baking like a pie or like whatever it is. And so at the end of the training session, good, bad, whatever, we would take a moment, we would sit together, we'd breathe together, and we would have that pie. And it was one of the most enjoyable things and most like memories that have stuck not only in my head, but in my soul. And it was such a beautiful moment, not only to connect with my student, but to also truly celebrate and acknowledge, you're not always going to have great sessions. But if we can come back and look at how the session was, take some lessons from it, and just enjoy our time together, which is ideally, hopefully, why we're even here and doing this stuff, is to enjoy it. Man, just that little switch was
Hmm.
a game changer for me.
Totally. So I'm tying this in. I'm gonna wrap this around my mission of the podcast, which is transforming lives through primal adventure. This
Mm,
this idea of transformation. I love what you just said there, because this reminds me of this idea of when I was running my ultras. And this concept of we don't know what we don't know. All
Mm.
humanity lives with blinders on, and all we can see is like what's ahead of us. And I feel like so many people are like Cameron in the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off. You remember that movie
Oh, it's been so long.
where he's in the art museum and he's standing like inches away from the painting that's made of dots, and all he is seeing is the dots. But Ferris and his girlfriend are like back by 20 feet, and they see this beautiful painting. So I feel like humanity a lot of the times is like Cameron standing really close to the painting where all they see is the dots. The the thing is understanding, like you said, let's let's enjoy this pie. And it hit you in your soul, right? It left a mark on your soul. So when I was doing my training runs for the ultra, I despise pickles. I think they are the grossest thing, and I know that came out of left field right there. You're like, I was not expecting
That was
that.
the last thing I would have imagined.
But so track with me on this. I hate pickles, hate them. I think vinegar is like disgusting.
Okay.
And I ran 30 miles one day, and I was with a buddy. Shout out to my training partner, Big Dog, if you're listening. Um, he was like, "Hey, do you want a pickle?" And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds so good right now." Everything inside of me, my entire life, even after this moment, I hate pickles. But when I put my body through some sort of focus and intentionality, my realm of this universe, like the veils got pulled back, and I was able to enjoy something in life that I've never been able to enjoy and never had an experience like that really ever again, or unless I was to put myself into that type of experience. Full circle, the transformation, you talking about the pie at the end of the workout, is when people lead with this intention and allow them to go beyond their barriers that they constantly have. We live in a box, right? Like, oh, I'm not a hunter. I can't hunt. I've never done that. Oh, I can't vote blue. I can't vote red. I
Mm.
can't do this. I can't. It's like you are living your life based off of opinions and not perspective. And that perspective is shattering to our universe and our self-awareness of who we are and how we fit in with everything around us. I want to know more about that pie.
Dude, well, the pie itself, so she does all gluten, dairy free, like the it's literally as I don't know if the word is granola or whatever you want to say. It's like the most home style ingredients you can get. And she just makes that's the other thing too. It's making it with love. Today, I woke up downstairs. I'm so grateful. I woke up downstairs and there was this like amazing smell when I was walking down the stairs. And I was like, what is that? And my fiance, Lauren, who loves cooking and is like beyond she cooks for all the men's retreats that we do. She cooks, makes everything from scratch. But the love that's put into the food and when you know the person who's making it, or for example, when we dive into the hunting, like when you for me, I'm a new hunter. I've been hunting, I think, for just a year and a half or so now.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be going on another hunt in, I think, 2 months now. And, man, when you know where your meat comes from, it is completely a different experience. Like, I've always had I would say to some extent, I've always, at least for the last 15 years, been quite intentional with how I eat. Appreciate, maybe even saying a prayer, not religious, but saying a prayer of gratitude and of thanks for my food. And when I was a part of the hunt, everything changed. Just like when Ada made that pie, or today I walked downstairs, Lauren was making me banana pancakes. And I was one, the food's freaking delicious. But two, I was just so grateful. Like she spent, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes, an hour preparing all this stuff from scratch. She was excited, for me to wake up and to come downstairs and to like see her in the kitchen making that. And I was just, had it been something, nothing against pancakes that I might buy, but like at the same time, it doesn't have for me the same like energy signature. Those pancakes felt so much fucking better going down because I was like, wow, she genuinely took the time. I know where these came from. And it just was so, it's way more enjoyable for me to connect to where the food comes from or who's making it, to express some appreciation. And every bite, it changes from fuel to actual nourishment for the soul. And that's one of the cool things about knowing where our food comes from and the people who make it and expressing gratitude for them.
Yes. Yes, dude. I love that. Gratitude changes the world.
Mm.
My brother Lucas Mack from the Golden Rule Revolution
Shout
podcast.
out to Lucas. Love
Dude,
Lucas.
love him. He I remember seeing, I think, a painting in his house framed that says gratitude makes
Mhm.
everything enough.
Wow.
And I was like,
I love that. Man.
yes. Makes everything enough. Grateful for the opportunity. Grateful for the ability to be alive. You know, old Jewish prayer that they start their day with is, I don't know the Hebrew version of it, but the first part of it is, the minute that their eyes open, is, thank you, Lord, for returning my soul to my body. It's like, because without gratitude, we are nothing. But what does anything matter at that
Mm.
point? So I love this, Mike. You're world champion kettlebell guy, but you also, I remember what first connected us over a year ago was talking about you thinking about creating specific hunting specific workouts, but through something that I've never heard of, but I've seen, and that was Bulgarian bag training. Are you still doing that?
Yeah, I've been using the bag specifically, I think like 13 years now. So I've been using it for so long. It's going to be there's a few training tools that no matter where I am in life will always be a staple. And the Bulgarian bag and the kettlebell are two of those. One of the biggest reasons is because they're portable. And you don't like literally with one bag, one single bag. I've used 90% of all my training happens with one weight of one bag. And I've had it for over 10 years, that bag. And that's all I need. I have it in my truck right now. I actually have one in my office right now. I have one downstairs. It's for me, it's one of the best tools, and it relates directly to hunting and hunting performance. Absolutely.
Talk a little bit more about that. What is a Bulgarian bag?
So, okay, so a Bulgarian bag looks kind of like a mix between a croissant and a sandbag. So basically, it's got a U-type shape, and the way you utilize. So there's a few tools like barbells, dumbbells, kettlebells. Each tool, I always like to say, has its own personality. Not one's better than the other. It just depends on what you're really trying to gear your training towards. So the Bulgarian bag actually stems from wrestling. So the inventor of the bag was the former US Olympic Greco-Roman wrestling coach. He was also an Olympian himself. And when he developed it, he wanted a tool that he could utilize with all his athletes in a small space. They could even train at home that trained a lot of the wrestling movements, primarily grip, like the necessity for grip, rotational movements, explosive movements, endurance based movements, all of that stuff, but with one tool. And so there's actually a funny story with this. So in Bulgaria, when he would wrestle in the country, he's from the country. So when he would wrestle in the country, the prize would actually be livestock. And so one of the ways there's actually maybe I think that there is a picture somewhere. I think it's probably online, but you'll see a guy with a goat on its back. And the way that you take the animal from the floor to the shoulder can be what we call a movement called the lamb swing. So there is that connection there. But these movement, but when you're thinking about like the main movement pattern that we don't train, that I would say all athletes and non-athletes need, and oftentimes it's where we tend to get injured because we're not skilled in it, is rotation.
Mm.
So it is a tool, I would say, for grip and rotational based movements. I don't know honestly anything better. And in a short amount of time, you can get an ass kicker of a workout. It's pretty incredible.
How much does a Bulgarian bag weigh?
So, kind of like kettlebells, in the beginning, when he first invented them, I think like 15 plus years ago, more or less, there was classically only four weights. So there was 11 pounds, 17, 26, and 37 pounds. Now, like kettlebells, he's made so many increments. So there's from 6 pounds up to 100 plus pounds with very small dialed increments. But I will say, those four weights that I mentioned, any gym, if you wanted a full setup, that's all you would need to train your grandma, all the way up to a world champion athlete. Like for me, I use 26 pounds. And that might not sound like a lot, but and here's one of the biggest things because I sell bags on my site. I can't even tell you. Usually, it's the guys who like definitely have like an ego and like they'll ask me what bag should I get, and I'll say, well, based off of your fitness level, your experience with the tool, your body weight, your athleticism, I might recommend 20 pounds or 26. And I remember one guy who actually ended up being one of my best clients. He's like, I'm a man, right? And I'm like, dude, I'm just telling you, I've been using this bag for at that time over 10 years and 26 pounds. It's not the weight, it's how you use the tool and how you move your body and the positions and the mobility and the flexibility and the grip. So he gets a 50 pound. This happened a few times. And then literally within 3 days upon purchasing, can I return that? It's way too heavy because you're doing these movements of where you're using rotational force, you're using explosiveness, and it's way different than anything else. So, gentlemen, if you're listening and you're interested in a bag, lighter is going to definitely be better. And I promise you, your grip and your body will be smoked even at a lightweight.
It's kind of the saying, less is more, right?
Less is more, especially with that tool for sure. Barbell, you want to do some barbell lifting? That's a tool where you want to actually incrementally load. You can load it to 3, 4, 500 pounds. The bag, you can, but you just won't be able to do very much with it.
Did you end up creating an entire workout for this? Are you selling that or how's that go?
So I was, but a few things I started diving in more into men's work, and I've just gotten a tremendous amount of fulfillment from leading retreats and that sort of stuff. So a formal bag program out there is not out, but I have done when I was on one of the last hunts that I was on, I did create a hunting conditioning program primarily with the bag for that group, and it's up the primary tool, that and the kettlebell, that I do train people. But right now there isn't a program out, but maybe in the near future, we'll see.
Okay, because right now I'm motivated. I have an easy curl bar in my garage
Classic.
with 30 pounds on either side. So I don't know, what is it? Easy curl bar like 10 or 15 pounds, maybe.
Probably 50, yeah, 50, yeah, no more than 15, I would imagine.
Yeah, so maybe it's 75 pounds at the max, and I got 40-pound dumbbells, and then I got an ice chest. So I'll use that as like a bench, and I'll do step ups and squats and stuff like that, which is great. But as I get older, like you were saying, and it stems from running. Running, long distance running is linear.
Yeah.
And you train your muscles one direction and one direction only, and it's so repetitive that you lose a lot of muscular shape, density. Like I would be so tight in regions that it really hurt to do other things. And so I'm actually looking at expanding, cutting out the running, getting in more to like muscle training. And so I'm going to pop on your website and take a look at getting one of those, but I might have to call upon you to put together a workout for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, here's one of the things that I even felt. So when I was competing in powerlifting, I was hands down so much stronger than I am now. Like sometimes it's embarrassing. But let me say this, while I can't remotely lift the weight that I was lifting when I was competing in that sport, I feel strong enough for everything that I need to do and love to do. And I feel so much better and I'm so much more athletic. Because if I was just doing, which I was for 10 years, squat, bench, and deadlift, the same straight up and down, I was strong in those things. But if you try to get me to crawl or to move underneath something or to jump over something, it literally, I felt like a fish out of water. And I really do think like we need to think about like, what are we really trying to apply this strength to? What I like, does it really serve me to have a 500 plus pound squat? Not necessarily. Where am I squatting that much today? But I'd love to squat 300. I'd like to do at least double or 2.5 times body weight. But I'm way more concerned. Can I get in a low position? Can I move? Can I maneuver myself? Am I in pain? Does my back hurt every day? So one of the things that I've learned with the bag is I'm plenty strong and I'm getting stronger and stronger. But man, I'm flexible and strong. I am strong and I have good endurance. And those things tend to be opposites. So typically, if you take a bodybuilder, they're going to be in general, pretty stiff. If you take a marathon runner in general, they're not nearly going to be able to move or not nearly going to be as strong if as a sprinter. So with this tool, it's really neat because you can accomplish what mostly people think is opposite objectives, but you can do them together.
And you know what's really interesting is ever since COVID hit, which I hate talking about COVID anymore, but I don't know. Did you ever look up dumbbells to see how much dumbbells were during COVID?
No, I
They
didn't.
went through the roof.
Wow.
You
Yeah.
couldn't find a set of dumbbells for remote. Yeah, there was, and I forget what company it does. Not Nordic Track, but there's one company that makes like adjustable dumbbells where you can twist off what weights or whatever you could go with. So it has like up to 80 pounds each, but as low as like 10. Those sets were going for like $800 just for a set of
No
dumbbells
way.
over COVID. Yeah, and I'm sure the prices might have come down, but then you got, what is it? Where the products aren't available, supply chain issues, and all this stuff. So here I am thinking, man, I'd really like to just get myself a Bulgarian bag and call it good at that. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of hunters, they like to train with weighted backpacks. So they like to put on their hunting bag and go buy like a cement bag or a sand bag and then just duct tape the crap out of it all around so it doesn't leak, and then just put it in their backpack and go, which is great and it does work. I need a little bit more movement. I got 3 kids, 3 boys, and they want to wrestle with me all the time, and they're always attacking me from different angles and like lifting the kids up on their bunk beds and all sorts of stuff. Like I can see real world application of this being very important.
Yeah, I think most people do want to feel good in their body. Like we're all aging and we all will get old at some point and our mobility will go down. And, if you're listening to this podcast, I imagine you like or love hunting. And if you do want to hunt into your elder years and want to actually stalk and move, if that's something that you enjoy, you want to at least have the ability to do so. It would suck to want to do that. And that being maybe your dream or one of the things you love doing with your kids or your family, but you can't because you're limited by your body. If you just took a little bit of time to focus on how you move, man, it can go a long way and you can really extend your fulfillment in life and really continue this if you want with generations and just keep moving because movement is one of the things that makes us human, like how we move. And so if we lose that, we lose also our sense of freedom. Oftentimes you hear that a lot with people getting older. They lose their license or whatever it is, or they can't move. Like it's a big attack on their sense of freedom.
Mm. So interesting. Great perspective. My goal is to be able to still backpack hunt with my children. So,
Dude,
and
hell
when
yeah.
and when they're not kids anymore, like say they're in their mid 20s or they're my age, I still want to be able to get after it with them. So that's my goal, and it's time to start shifting and making sure my life is taken care of to be able to do that. All right, so let's shift gears here because I love the workout. I love the mindset. Let's dive in more to this mindset. Mike, one of the big things that you and I talked about is the spiritual side of life and how you're newer to hunting,
Yeah.
and taking a life is super sacred. And with that, there's an intention needs to be put into it, and a lot of people just willy-nilly life, like, I don't know why I did it. Why'd you do that? I don't know. That's why I'm so big on mentorship as conservation, is this idea of like, you get so ingrained in your ways for so long that you just forget why you do it or how you did it or what was the reason behind it. And so continuing to ground ourselves with intention makes a huge difference. Share your experiences of what it's like with you starting your hunting journey and the intention that goes around it.
Mm. So I've wanted to develop a closer connection. It started with just developing a closer connection to the food that I was eating. So even before I started hunting, I think for 9 years, I was ordering a whole beef every single year from a family farm, and it's all grass fed, grass finished. And the intention behind that was to really one get the highest quality meat, but then two develop a relationship with the people who are growing the food and really understand their heart and their soul and their dream. Because every single time I would take a bite of that meat, I really felt like I was eating a part of like their legacy, and that means a lot to me. But it was just so hard to to find I always wanted to be a part of a slaughter just to have that experience and to really see what actually happens because dude, I grew up in like I didn't grow up hunting obviously. Like I don't even think my parents we went on a hike until I was like 26. So there wasn't my parents are both immigrants from Sicily. So if you can imagine that that was the life experience that I grew up in and all the meat that I was having was just in a plastic wrap or whatever or a paper wrap that you would get at a I don't know, a Safeway or wherever. And so there was such a disconnect from what actually happens when an animal dies and every stage in that process before we eat it. So I was curious as I started learning more and wanting to take more care of my own health and connect to myself, connect to my food. And so when I had the opportunity to go on a hunt with a friend of mine, Monsel, who has he runs sacred hunting experiences, it really lit me up, man, because I really was so excited that I was finally going to get this opportunity. And so for me, the intention doesn't like, I feel by and large as society, we've completely lost ritual or ritual initiation specifically. And hunting for me was a major ritual initiation. When I was on that first hunt, I felt like some part of me had done this before.
Mm.
And as I was going through it, I was like, wow, I've never done this, but this feels really familiar. And witnessing, not only taking the life of an animal, but witnessing one for when I took my brother out, it was such a transformative moment because well, I'd never taken an animal's life before. And it was as big, if not quite a bit, way bigger than I thought it was going to be. It was super emotional. Like it moved a lot of me.
Yeah.
And I really connected with truly how brief life can be.
Dude, that's incredible. So as you're telling me this story, you're instantly making me think back to the beginning of my podcasting days, like
Mhm.
what 2.5 years ago or whatever. Episode 5. So all you listeners who have never listened to the beginning episodes of this podcast, go back to listen to episode 5. It's titled "The Power of Purpose" with
Mm.
Tim Corcoran. And Tim Cork, oh, dude, you know him?
I'm
Yeah.
going on a spirit vision quest literally
Yes.
in 30 days. I'm prepping for it right
I
now.
was
And then I'm going on the hunt right after it.
So I was just he's
No
been a
way.
guest on my podcast. Yes. So when the
Dude, a
soulful
freak.
so what you need to let him know that I say hello and that you have
Wow.
a connection now.
Amazing.
You have a soulful connection with Tim because you've both been guests on this podcast. Yeah. So Tim talks about connecting back to the way of the natives and vision quests and spirit quests and what is it? Going from a boy to manhood. I forget what that term is called.
Just
Um,
initiation
yeah, he
or
talks
yep.
really big about initiation and all that, and it goes hand in hand with you talking about your journey in hunting. It's
Mm.
huge. Go ahead, keep going. I'm so glad that you know who that is because I was going to point you towards him anyways.
I've been so excited to go on this vision quest for well over a year now. And so that's happening at the end of September in Idaho. So Um, well, like what we were sharing about earlier, I've been more and more attracted in recent years, probably the last, I don't know, 8 years or so, to because we can either be initiated consciously or unconsciously. We're either going to choose to have it happen or it's going to happen to us in life. Life is a series of initiation. It's just, are we prepared for it oftentimes? And so hunting, it was something that I really wanted that experience. And so just like the vision quest, because I knew on the other side of this and the experience going through it, I'm going to grow as a man. I'm going to be a better man. I'm going to be a better soon to be husband. I'm going to be a better father,
Yeah.
just connecting with those parts. So not only wanting to have a deeper connection and appreciation of gratitude of the food that I'm eating on the hunt, but also I want to take that back. And for example, when I led the last men's retreat that I was doing, I shared some of the meat that I got from the hunt. And I got to tell the story of how that animal died and what it meant to me. And that as they were eating, I guided them through just a prayer of gratitude for the food in front of them. Close their eyes, take a deep breath, place your hands over the food, and just take a moment and just be grateful that we can be here together as brothers and share this meat. And this animal gave its life. And to share that not only with my family, but to share this with the other men. And now, honestly, when I talk to them, almost everyone that I've talked to has said that mealtime experience was one of the more memorable things. And now they're doing it with their family. And whether or not they're going on a hunt, they're bringing more intentionality, more gratitude to the food that they eat. And I really do believe it extends everywhere else in our life. If we can have a moment, how many times do we eat? We eat at least 2 to 3 times a day. And if we could take that pause, man, it can be pretty profound.
Yeah. You know, I have Two Shot Tony, my hunting partner.
Two shot.
Yeah. Yeah, we always get into very deep spiritual talks when we hunt because go tell it on a mountain, right? Like there's no better way to get connected with yourself and nature and your creator than when you're out in the wilderness truly living, right? And so he talked to me after one of our hunts, and we've actually had this conversation a few times, but he's like, why? I always say, thank you, God, for this food. I ask you to bless it and make it nourishing to our bodies. And he was always like, why do you ask God to bless the food that you're eating and to make it nourishing to our bodies? I was like, well, number one, because I might be consuming food that's not that nourishing. And there's a difference, like you said earlier in this podcast, there's a difference between eating for satiation and eating for nourishment.
Mm.
And I want to nourish not only my physical body, but my spiritual body, my spiritual side, my soul, my mind, and then also blessing the food because, like you said, there's a story behind it. Whether or not I took that animal's life, or I plucked that ear of corn, or I pulled that carrot or potato, there's a story to be told that goes along with it. And this gets a little woo-woo. This gets a little tree huggerish. And I think this is the really fascinating concept of like the concept of granola tree huggers are just the other half of the circle, the yin and the yang to hunting and to the circle of life and the circle of death, right? Because as much as you want to protect something because of what it holds and what it gives, through death brings life, and life leads to death, and it's just that continual circle. So share more. Why a vision quest? Why do you want to constantly be so intentional with this? And yes, the connection with food, because that's huge. But is there more?
Mm. You know, and this will tie into the hunting as well, but the vision quest in and of itself, like if are you familiar with what Vipassana is?
I have not actually heard that term.
Just as it's basically a silent meditation. And so typically there'll be like 7 day, 2 week, 1 month Vipassanas. And that's something that I've always wanted because I really feel today there's so much noise and so much distraction. I mean, I was actually just looking last night and I set on my Instagram a 15-minute timer or notification to let me know when I've hit 15 minutes. So I do my best to spend not more than 15 minutes on social media. And oftentimes it's primarily for work. But when we look at the amount of distractions and inputs that we have, our systems are just so charged up all the time. And that's why I think this is just my experience of it, but I really feel this is why potentially so many people love hunting. It's because you're out in nature, you're out in open space, you're connecting with the land in some way, shape, or form. You're breathing the air, you're in the sun, you're moving your body a lot of times. And so for me, the pull to do the vision quest is I've gotten so much just richness in life, connection to myself, connection to, I'm just going to call it source in the stillness when things are quiet. And the only thing, this is why I love floating sensory deprivation tanks, because literally you are in a tank suspended by Epsom salts and there's no sound, there's no visual, it's completely dark. The water is the same temperature as your skin and there's no smell. So basically, you are just literally floating and you're left alone with your thoughts and your emotions. And you can process so much, or you can get creative. I love it for problem solving. If there's something emotionally or mentally I can't figure out, or for example, now as I'm preparing for the vision quest, I'm really getting clear on what's my intention for it. Why do I want to suffer in nature for 10 days? What do I want to get out of this experience? And so in these places and moments of stillness, we can really learn a lot about myself and or ourselves. And for me, I don't know exactly yet the intention. I haven't set it yet for the vision quest, but I'm about to be a father in a few months. And I just got engaged. And so there is like this legacy, being a father, like I'm going through change. I feel like I'm waking up, dude, each day truly a different man because I wake up and I see Lauren and I place my hand on her belly and I connect to the baby and I'm just like, it gets me emotional. But that vision quest, like, I really want to see what type of man I'm going to step into to be the best fucking father I can be.
Mm,
And so I know that the intention is going to be somewheres around that and being courageous enough to look at honestly where I'm not showing up, where I know I can be better. And through these rites of passage or through these initiations, what I've really found is they've been intentional time frames for me to remove all the distractions and really look at some of the scarier stuff or the things that I've been numbing out and really holding me back from that version of myself that I know my son or daughter deserves, that I want to give. And I want to be as present of a father as possible. And I really do believe that those situations are absolutely pivotal or can be pivotal if we enter them with that intentionality and seeking to bring in that nourishment.
mm. Powerful. You mentioned being present in the moment. To be a good hunter, you
Mm.
have to be present in the moment. If you're anywhere else, you're not going to be efficient. I'll use the term efficient. It goes back to the beginning of this podcast where you're talking about your weight, not weightlifting, your championship performance. You're just thinking about the breathing, the all that. You are present in what you're doing, and through your presence, through the energy focus of what you are doing, it allows you to accomplish more than what you potentially could even imagine what you were capable of.
I hear you, man. And I was also thinking, piggybacking off of what you said, like even so I take my dog for a walk, right? And oftentimes like I'll utilize that time just to practice noticing. Because oftentimes when we go outside, let's say maybe I'll just take my dog out to take a pee or something like that. The objective is to have the dog pee or poop. And so I'm just, distracted, maybe sometimes listen to an audiobook or whatever it is, trying to achieve the objective of getting my dog to poop. But now when I go outside, I do my best to actually just go outside and look around and see something different that I didn't notice before. Like
Mm,
I had no idea. Like I've lived off and on in this home for over 20 years. It was the first home my parents bought, then me and my brother brought it from them. So I've been in this neighborhood for fucking ever, right? And with this intentionality going out, there is so much more than I'm actually able to observe. And so if you're on a hunt and you're breathing and you're present, and now you're way more open, like your field of vision, your field of sensing, not just your field of vision, but actually your felt sense opens up. I really do believe in it, how it's shown up in my life. I'm able to perceive so much more of the nuances that are and that show up in life.
oh, I love this. Okay, so I'm gonna give a little tip right here for all you hunters. You're like, okay, how can I take away a tip or tactic to apply to the hunting aspect? This goes back to the book that I talked about, The Untethered Soul, and listening to your inner voice. Yeah, it ultimately goes with the concept of trusting yourself. You have to trust yourself. If you don't trust yourself, you're going to miss a lot of opportunities in life. So, here, little background story. I'm in the garage, and out of the corner of my eye, I'm turning, I'm doing something. I see like a flash of something. Just something that catches my eye that is abnormal to my sensory of what's been static in the garage. I could have ignored it and be like, what was that? Oh, it's nothing. just keep going about what I was doing. But I looked at where what thought I saw came from, and then I applied what it could have been, and I got myself a little sticky, uh, like spider trap that you fold up, like one of those sticky pads, but you make it a tunnel, and I put it against the wall, and I went in my house, and I came out a couple hours later, and I had a mouse caught in the sticky pad. How does that apply to hunting? Because when people are glassing and looking for animals with their optics, and a lot of people are like, how did you see that? Or how did you notice that? You got to trust yourself and allow yourself to really expand into what you're doing. If you're like, oh, I'm looking for a deer, I'm looking for a deer, I'm looking for a deer. Well, if you don't see the exact outline of a deer, you may or may not even see it, right? But when you can immerse yourself and just take in nature as it is and be like, okay, well, this is what nature looks like. Now, as I'm looking at nature and I'm scanning it for my quarry, hey, something stands out. Something doesn't look natural. Something caught my eye, and now you get to laser focus your attention on that and pick it apart and be like, oh, dude, there's a mule deer hanging under the bush shadow, and its one little hoof was sticking out in the sunlight, and about 4 inches of that deer was visible. But now when I focused, I could actually see the deer. And so that's a little piece of advice for you on your hunting journey
Thank you.
is
Thank you.
applying
That's
that,
great.
is because going back to the dots in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, right? If we're only looking for one specific thing, we're only gonna get that one specific thing. Take it in, accept all that nature has to offer, enjoy the moment, ground yourself, have intention, and enjoy the process. And enjoying the process will lead to so many more results that you didn't even know you could imagine. And applying for hunting, who knows what other animals you're going to see.
I think that's spot on, man. That's beautiful. Thank you. And I was just thinking, like, how many times in our lives do we set out on something, whether it's a hunt, you name it, something, and what we experience or get out of it is not what we originally thought was going to happen? Almost every time. Like, it's almost very rare that you actually, especially if it's a longer process, like, your ultra marathons or whatever. Like, we start on these things because it's very helpful to have a goal or an objective at the opposite end. But if you were to ask us from the beginning to the end, did exactly how we thought something was going to happen? Absolutely not.
No, I ended up learning to love running, not because I love running, but because I love it as my think time. Like what you were talking about earlier.
Wow.
Like I knew that when I go running, because I more often than not won't have headphones in, it's me and my voice in my head. It's like, okay, what are we going to work through today? What are we going to work through in this next half hour, this next hour, this next 20 minutes, this next 7 hours? I mean, what you go through a lot of different thoughts in that time when it's just you. And there's a special moment, like you said, the life is so busy. There's so much buzz, so much static that how often do people return back to themselves and center themselves? Mike, talk about the ceremony. This guy that you went on this hunt with, and how he initiated you into starting your hunt.
Yeah, it was super special, man. Super special. So I'll just say, like, I really believe that any ritual, especially when so the difference between uh I don't like the word so much anymore saying a routine. I like ritual because ritual for me is a routine that brings in the intentionality component, the reason of why we're doing what we're doing. And so from the start, um, Monsell had really, so I had served on the first hunt that I went on with him. I had served our group something called Combo, which is it's a medicine, it's a natural medicine from the Amazon that's been used for thousands of years. It's been used, one of the main reasons, by tribes as a hunter's medicine. And so one is an incredible cleanse of the body, but one of the things it does is it really man, it cleanses you at a very deep level and can connect you much deeper to your environment around you, which is one of the reasons why it was used. So we started with this hunter's medicine in a group. So all going through a challenging experience together. And through a challenging, trying experience, you really get to see people vulnerable. And today, by and large, like we don't get to vulnerability, especially among men for the most part. I think things are changing and sometimes it goes way too much in one end of the spectrum and on the other extreme, but vulnerability isn't oftentimes welcomed in men, right? It's like we have to be tough, we have to have it all together. And so when you're in, for example, a combo ceremony, you are very vulnerable. And the people around you are there holding space and witnessing and maybe sending some loving thoughts or loving prayers. You're going through your experience, but you're going through this communal suffering basically. And through that you forge a one more connected group, especially who are going on the hunt together. But two, you get to know everyone on a much deeper level. And when they share afterwards, what happened? What came up for you? What did you get out of it? You really get to hear their heart speak oftentimes. And so we started with that. And then when we went out there was a blessing of the weapons. We also wrote a love letter to our animal, and that might sound pretty funny or it might sound odd. But to be honest, if you really like drop in and can like remove if that sounds goofy to you, but you are taking a life. And that is a significant thing. It changed my life completely. Completely. And so if we can kind of put aside the what it might look like on the outside, it really prepared me to connect with the gravity of what was likely going to happen. I didn't know if I was going to get an animal, but if it did, one, I wanted to connect and express gratitude and why I was here, what I wanted to get out of the trip. That when I go home, I'm going to bring this to the events. I'm going to bring this to my family. I'm going to show appreciation for you. So thank you for giving up your life so I can feed my family and to breathe with that. And it made, when I did take the animal, it made it a different experience. It made it from, again, going through the motions of like what I was saying earlier, just going outside so my dog can poop, I can take it out and bring it inside, to going outside and breathing and bonding with my dog and noticing the environment, being grateful that holy shit, it's a sunny day. And those are like those little details and those nuances that for me add so much richness and growth in life. And so there was that aspect. And then some of the other big things that stick out was there was a prayer of gratitude after we killed the animal. And so we used tobacco and we sprinkled that over the animal. And on those hunts, I was fortunate enough to go with people who also got animals when we split up into groups. And so I got to say a prayer of thanks. And when I put my hand for the first time killing an animal, placing my hand on it and feeling the warmth,
Mhm.
dude, and I got to do that one with my brother. So to do that with my blood brother and to share that experience with him and to have both of our hands on it, dude, it's absolutely emotional and brought us so much closer together. And go for it.
Dude, okay. You're speaking my language, and obviously there's a reason why I originally called this podcast The Soulful Hunter, or now Soul Seekers, is because that soul connection. I remember, and this this is a funny anecdote, but I remember back in my 20s where I knew that if I broke a touch barrier with a female, like we may like look at each other, kind of smile, you flirt, whatever. But the minute you broke the touch barrier with them, whether it's a hand to hand, touching a shoulder, like foot to foot type thing, that it was going to be more than like a handshake type thing. Like the connection was there. And the interesting concept is that extends, like, yes, I just applied that to like my dating life, but the point is when you make a physical connection with anything in this
Mm.
world, there's that energy transfer. And that what you're saying, you and your brother both got to lay hands on that animal at the exact same time. When you got to lay your hand and touch that animal, it made that relationship that much deeper. and you got to take that then with you from the field into however much longer that animal lasted in your freezer to your dinner plate to whatever, and now it lasts through stories. I truly think it's phenomenal if people would slow down and look at things in that regard. It's like a flower blossoming. All of a sudden, it's like, whoa, look at this. It's beautiful. It's so much more special than just notching tags. If it's brown, it's down. If it flies, it dies, you know? And I think that's super special. And if more people had opportunities like that, if more people allowed themselves the allowed themselves dropping the ego, dropping the macho man status, or I need to lift the 45-pound bag, not the 27-pound bag, you know, and they lived a life of humility, that this world would be transformed. We'd all be walking around completely different. And then that would be like the whole Mahatma Gandhi thing, like be the change you want to see in the world. How do you want to see the world? If you want to see the world in a specific light, then you need to go through an experience that allows you to view it in that light.
Wow.
And that is hunting. That's the transformation through primal adventure that I'm always talking about. And I think you're one of the first guests I've ever been able to bring on this podcast in 175 episodes that has really explained that
Mm.
and had that type of experience that you could share verbally. Thank you. That's
Oh,
that's phenomenal.
dude, it's well, thank you for having me on. And one of the things that I was hearing you say, and it brought up like there's this viewpoint that, again, going back to that, as men we have to be strong, right? Like we have to be strong. Well, I don't know about you, but as like a human being, I've realized that one of the strongest things that I can do, or one of the greatest expressions of my strength and how I can show up for myself and my family, is the ability and the allowing and the self permission to actually allow myself to be vulnerable. When I was squatting and powerlifting, I'm telling you, there is no heavier weight, no physical weight that's heavier and harder than the emotions, right? If we can actually step into vulnerability, that, especially for men, is sometimes the hardest thing. And the ability to switch. Can we switch on, let's say, the protector, the physical attributes that we need to in certain aspects? But then can we dial it back so when we walk in the door at home, we know how to turn that off? And I know how to be present and loving with my future son or daughter and my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Like, can I do that? Or am I stuck in this overly rigid, overly old masculine expression? It's like, for me, true strength lies in the vulnerability. And that's where we would develop courage. But I think what you said is exactly spot on. We first have to allow ourselves the ability to dive into that. And I think I've thought about this a lot, but I really think a big part of why that tends to be difficult for us, by and large, tends to be because we just haven't had it modeled too many times. And so if our environment or the people who've taken us, let's say, for example, hunting, just haven't modeled us, maybe a part of us, one, doesn't even know that that is a possibility, or two, was curious, but it's been shamed. And because it's been shamed, we shut that down. And then to bond and connect with the others, we actually shame others or put others down. But the real courage lies in the opening, that expansion, and being the change or being what you want to see in the world. And hopefully, in some way, shape, or form, or in all forms, it's love. It is support. It is community. It is mentorship. It's all of this. It's not a one way thing to whatever, you know?
Dude, it all comes back to love. Mentorship is love. No greater love than this, that a man lays down his life for another. Laying down your life isn't just meaning physically dying, taking a bullet for
Mm,
somebody else. It's putting them ahead of your own desires. It's
mm,
putting your wife before your own desires, your future child before your own desires, the person you wanting to teach, or the person that you have the ability to teach in the field ahead of your own desires. I can tell you, you get to a point in your hunting career that you don't necessarily need to kill any more animals,
mm.
but you love the process of what it is, and it's so much fun to see somebody else take their first animal. right? So like Christmas for parents. Christmas was magical as a child. Well, how does the Christmas magic return for adults when they get to see their children live it? And so it's the same thing with hunting. You know, if that fire has kind of, all right, it's run its course. The entire forest is burnt and now it's time for that regrowth, then being there to observe and be a part of that regrowth with the next generation or with your next door neighbor or him and his kid or whoever it is, the joy and the magic returns when you give that gift away. And that's why in this podcast, we always say you can never outgive good. Because when you're focusing that beyond yourself, that's why you talked about the love letter to the animal. I love that. It sounds trippy for a lot of people who have never gone through any sort of emotional intelligence training or leadership training. That may sound really like, wow, I'm turning this podcast off right now. But in one of the emotional development trainings that I took, I actually had to write a love letter to myself because the concept of you can't love others until you love yourself. So if I want to be a good mentor, I can't mentor people beyond how much I just am willing to mentor myself. I can't love others beyond how much I'm willing to love myself. If I'm a cup, or for example, this wonderful glass of whiskey I'm drinking right here, if this whiskey, I pour it out into your cup, how my cup's empty, right? So we need to be able to love and refill our own cup so that it can continually go out into this world. And that is the whole premise of mentorship is conservation, why I even do what I do and why this podcast even exists. You right now, Mike, there's a reason why I always say life happens for us. It doesn't happen to us. There's a reason why you and I were not meant to record a year ago. And I think a lot of it has to do with your experiences and the way you get to share your story that has led you to this moment in time and us being able to be in communion on this podcast.
I love it, bro. I love it. This has been so much fun, man. So much fun. And it's cool also to hear even more of your perspective on and your love and why you do this. Because I knew superficially, right? I've heard you mentorship and stuff, but actually that being the crux of it and that stemming back from love, like that's for me, that's connects me even closer to you
Yeah.
because we're very much in alignment with that. And so I appreciate you sharing, man, because I get to know more of you by you
Dude,
sharing that.
see, as Johnny L. Sasser would say, drop the ego.
Jo-
Drop the ego, be humble.
yeah.
Dude, it's the real deal. What's the purpose of life? Right? I'm gonna ask you, what do you think? What's the purpose of life?
For me, it's in every small action that we do each. Like I don't think for me, I'm realizing that purpose isn't this big thing. Maybe it is for someone, but for me, purpose is in the space between notes. It's in the everyday actions that where we were more inspired just to live. The purpose of life is to live life. And for me, it's in every action.
Yeah. There's no greater legacy that you can leave than being your own best self,
Mm.
right? You play college or high school sports at all?
Yeah.
You know, your high school football coach or coach, leave it all out on the field. Leave it all out on the field, right? Don't ever come back. Don't let let that buzzer at the end of the game go without you leaving it all out on the field. Sports, I've grown to really appreciate and despise at the same time with the way professional sports have gone. However, the metaphors for life within athletics is truly incredible. Because if you actually the purpose of life is to live the best life possible.
Mm.
And when you are doing your best, it allows you to model, using your word from earlier, allows you to model that for everyone else looking at you. And I said before we started recording, inspired people inspire people.
Mm.
And so, it only takes a spark to start a forest fire. So that little spark that we give ourselves, that we illuminate the world, is contagious. And just bam, it spreads. Ah,
I love
dude,
that, dude. I love that.
getting me all jacked up right now. Like, let's do this. Everybody get to your feet. Let's go. I always told, so I taught health, middle school health for 15 years of a 16-year teaching career. And one of the lessons I always talked about is how you view yourself and how others view you. Perception.
Mm.
How we perceive the world and how other people perceive us. And I was like, if you're looking at me and I'm smiling, it is so hard not to naturally smile back.
I'm smiling right now.
Right? And
Yeah.
because it's that, oh, yes, you want to join people in their joys. You want to celebrate with people. And if I'm frowning, like if you saw me frowning, you'd be like, I don't really want to talk to that person right now. I don't really want to be around them, you
Yeah.
know? Um, and it's not about a facade. It's about living. It's about getting out there and doing your best and forgetting the rest.
Oh, I love it. I love it, dude. And
So,
doing it with just dope ass humans. Those who
yes.
inspire. Like to do that, to live your best life and to do so in community or in like with people.
Mhm.
Like, and I love, like, I would say by and large, I've been like a hermit most of my, like, I love, like, I can be alone, that sort of stuff, and really enjoy life. However, especially as I'm getting older, like, there's nothing like sharing experiences with. Even going back to that training example, sharing pie with someone. Like when I'm on the platform, yeah, it's about me. Like I'm there to push myself and to see what I can do and to share that experience and to go through it in a safe space with others that I love and want to share it with. It's totally different. To walk downstairs in the morning and see Lauren making pancakes and get to share that food with her. I'm like, dude, this would be so much better. This is so much better than if I just went downstairs to cook pancakes by myself, for myself.
Mhm.
No comparison. No compare to share meat or to break. That's why they say we're breaking bread, right? We are sharing this sacrament. Um, yeah. So I absolutely love doing cool stuff with great people.
Oh, dude, I love it. So, what's your next hunting experience?
The next one. So I'm thinking about the dates. I'll be on the Vision Quest until early October, and then mid October ish, I'll be in the hill country of Texas. Uh,
Dude.
yeah, I think it'll be. That's where this one is. So I'll be out there, and I honestly don't even know what we're hunting for. The last two that I was out in that area, we were hunting for aoudad, I think whitetail deer, and then this last one we were somewhere else in Texas, and we were hunting also wild boar.
Mm.
So I don't know exactly what's going to be on this hunt, but I imagine some extent of those animals.
Just for my own my own curiosity, because I like to take notes during podcasts, and I have a podcast title and topic that I want to touch on later on, and it's high fence hunting and connection with food, because there's a lot of negativity around hunting, or quote unquote killing or hunting, harvesting, however you want to call it, on a high fence ranch where those animals are there for a purpose and
Mm.
they're, managed in a certain way, and the connection with food and how it can still be spiritual and how it can still be deep. So did you hunt on ranches that had higher fences that animals couldn't get out of?
Yeah, so I think there was like, I don't even know how many.
I mean, it's still like
I think,
large ranches, right?
yeah, like large, like I've never been, like, I think it was like, I don't quote me, but I think like 800 acres, something like that, like massive. Um, So yes. And I'm also super interested. Like, here's the thing. I think, you said the word being humble before. Like, this is something new that I'm getting into, and I'm so curious to learn I would love to do a longer hunt and actually like do something even more rigorous. And so I'm open to all of it. And I think, um, like with anything, if we can just be curious and have the courage to enter it, we'd be amazed at what we're going to get out of it. So I would love to see what other experiences are ahead, because so far the experiences have been so nourishing. If for example, like if some, and this goes with anything, but if someone came up to me and like, well, one, this is their projection on me, but like shame the shit out of me for hunting in a specific way, and I was just doing with what I knew at the time and doing it with much love and intention, then like, man, like we're all learning, we're all growing.
Hmm.
And again, it's if we're in this as students, then we can really discern some beautiful stuff. But if we're in this to put people down and that sort of stuff, it's like that's that frown face. That's
Yes.
that, like, or it's just like, hey, I'm a kid again. Like, I'm here, I'm open, like, teach me, like that's beautiful. Those are the people that are fun to be around.
Yep.
But you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
So
I 100% know what you're saying because in the hunting realm, there is within the last couple years been a huge movement of people disagreeing with what is called a grip and grin, which I didn't even know what that term was uh, at all. I was like, grip and grin, what? So it is. If this picture behind me, I got that light shining. Can you actually see it at all?
yeah, 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 yeah.
So I'm there holding the elk, and I'm smiling for the photo, and
Okay.
that is a grip and grin. And they're saying that that has a negative connotation for hunting and hunter recruitment because it makes us look like, I don't know, maybe we're enjoying it too much.
Mm,
Whatever, or we don't honor the life. And I'm like, dude, I've never done anything that I didn't enjoy or if I didn't smile doing it, I didn't enjoy it and therefore I don't want to be doing it again.
yeah.
But it leads with the whole idea where you were like, if someone could shame the shit out of me, it's all based off of judgment. Stop judging other people.
Yeah.
Like I always say, hunt your hunt.
Mm,
Hunt your hunt. Don't hunt your brother's hunt. Don't hunt your dad's hunt, your grandpa's hunt. Don't hunt social media's hunt. Don't hunt Joe Rogan's hunt. Don't hunt any of these people's. Hunt your hunt. Hunt because you want to. And live your life because you want to. Don't live it for somebody else. And that's a whole nother podcast topic.
I super appreciate that you shared that, man. Super appreciate, because I think that is, yeah, that's just so valuable. Focus on fucking you. Focus on you. Like in everything in life, right? Cuz like it's just it's hurtful. It's just like, man, like, so who wants to go, imagine, I don't know if this will make sense, but like imagine if like you sent your mom to the gym to go get, fit or lose body weight or improve posture, whatever. And the trainer basically was just like telling her how shitty she was and how fat she is or how poor her posture. It's like, fuck that. I'm never going to send my mom to that guy. It's like, quit judging. Quit judging. Focus on you. Do your job. Live your life the way you want to live it. Have as much respect as possible, but be open and respectful how other people want to live their life.
Mhm.
Right? Like, man, because it's just no fun to be around when people are just crummy.
No, dude,
Yeah.
no one wants that. No one wants that
No,
negativity in their life.
no, get that negativity out of here.
Get out of here. Okay, Mike, we're going to have a follow-up podcast because I don't want this to go much longer. We could go, I could see
Dude,
this
this
going Joe Rogan style where we're just like, 4 hours deep into it.
yeah.
So you do men's work also. And so I want to make sure we highlight what you do and how people can connect with you on your journey and support you and you support them. So share a little bit about that whole process.
Thank you so much, man. I mean, it ties into everything that we've talked about, and so I'll keep it pretty quick. But the men's work is really something in recent years that is truly something that probably gives me some of the most fulfillment in life. And it's really, I would just say it simply, like, I do my very best to create containers of safety where men in community can enter into discomfort, but do so productively with each other, with intention. And so, what might be uncomfortable for someone may be something like a sweat lodge. We bring in kind of native practices. I have like an elder coming in to share their wisdom as well. But we do ice baths. We do some physical training. We do some mental emotional work. And basically, the idea is everything is curated to bring in different types of uncomfortable situations. So that way men can learn to step into that and basically be the not the logo, but like the what do we say, the spirit animal of the event is the buffalo. And for me, the buffalo is something that is so strong and so grounded and also so calm as well and so tender as well. And so for me, the energy of the buffalo, when there's a storm, the herd of buffalo, they come together and they go through the center of the storm. And so no matter what's going on around us, can we be centered? We be grounded? Can we be strong? Can we be vulnerable? Can we learn to be both? As opposed to one thing that we have to be the financial provider. We have to be all of these things that society puts us on. And so really it's an incredible space. It's on an organic farm in Mount Shasta, California. The land is beautiful. All the meals are made by my fiance Lauren, made with love, with animals that I've hunted and also from local farms and stuff. And we really just do an incredible amount of activities. I bring in some legit facilitators, all with their different, let's just say, secret sauce, that bring in their gifts and they guide different events. But we do so over the course of 3 nights, 4 days, and it's just a blast, man. It's just a blast.
How can people go sign up for this, or where do we find you at?
So if you just go to either if you're on Instagram, just go in my name, the link's in the bio, mike.salemi, or on my website, which is mikesalemi.io, not .com. There'll be a link in there at the top for programs, and it's the Men of Movement Retreat. And so you click on that, you can learn more about the event, hop on a call with me. I chat with everyone who wants to come, see what you're working on in life, where you're looking for support, where you're looking to grow and step into. And if you feel like a good fit and I feel like you'd get a lot out of it as well, I'll certainly, tell you more about the retreat on the call as well.
Sweet. I freaking love it. I love it. Mike, just like I opened this podcast, you're a savage, brother. You nailed it.
You.
Crushed
Thank
it.
you so much.
Listeners, thank you so much for tuning into this episode and following along all the way to the end of this episode, as this time flies by, at least for me, like recording. Guys, go follow along with Mike. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with all your friends, neighbors, relatives, little kids, dogs, all that stuff, man. Just get it out into the world, because you can't outgive good, and helping share this message helps promote the hunting world and the hunting industry. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. For Mike Salemi, Johnny Mack, be blessed, freedom on, and stay soulful. If you enjoyed today's podcast and want to support the show, you can always like, share, subscribe, and leave a rating, as it helps us share our mission of mentorship is conservation. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of Soul Seekers Nation as we transform lives through primal adventure. If you want to get more connected with the podcast, check out the Soul Seekers Nation Facebook group, as I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. So stay tuned and stay soulful.